The town of Kinsale is located a little over 28 kilometres from Cork City. It is an historical port and fishing town that is the home to many prominent historical buildings. One of these buildings is the Kinsale Community Hospital. The hospital itself is located about a kilometre and a half north from the town centre. Upon arriving at the hospital, you wouldn't think that the building has been around since the Great Famine. The old stone walls have been resurfaced and painted yellow, but it still remains untouched on the gable end. The gable end remains part of the old walls surrounding the hospital. The west facade of the building is heavily glazed and benefits from solar gains during the summer evenings. The facade of the hospital is where the nuns used to live when they took over the ownership in the 1890s. The large windows benefited greatly from the sun throughout the day, even in the winter. Unfortunately, in the summer of 1922, a very large part of the building was destroyed by a fire, and then in 1923 the hospital was evacuated for use by the Free State military. They occupied the building for over 10 years. By the time the hospital was returned to the Cork County Council and the Sisterhood, the entire structure had been destroyed. Much of the interior had to be gutted. Unfortunately, this meant that the windows and doors are also replaced, and since then have been replaced again by modern, cheaper options such as PVC windows. These cheaper options do come at a price, because they stick out like a sore thumb in the surrounding brickwork. While visiting the site, one of the nuns mentioned to me that there used to be old sash windows where the PVC windows are now. The site is a mortuary. It hasn't changed outside since the famine. They have tried to keep the windows the same, but they had to change the wood, but the style has remained the same as what was there before. Hanging just inside the hospital is an old sketch of what the entire site used to look like before the fire, the Irish Army, or even the renovations. You can see the old chimneys which have now been knocked down. The hospital was previously heated by these fires alone. As you enter the hospital, located on the left hand side is the storage area. This used to be where the washrooms were located, and they were connected to the main building through tunnels. The caretaker used to live in a small room above the storage rooms. In front of the south facade lies the nuns' gardens. It has remained the same size for about 80 years now. It is to be untouched apart from maintenance, and that is why they fenced that area off a couple of years ago. Also on the south facade is the old telephone box and bus stop. The telephone is no longer functional but has been conserved. The bus stop has also been conserved as well. Visitors always get great enjoyment out of these items when they visit their relatives and loved ones in the hospital. The HSC took over ownership in 1998 from the Sisterhood because of financial reasons. A plaque was erected in the main hall to commemorate their hard work over the years with the patients. What I found really hard to believe that up until 1991, if a patient wanted to be moved up or down the stairs, they had to be carried by the sisters or the nurses that were on call at that time. This isn't an ideal situation, so with funding from the local community and businesses, a much needed lift was installed in 1990. When I visited the site, I was drawn to the mortuary at the rear. The little hut remains untouched outside apart from the window and door, which were replaced or conserved to the best of the hospital's ability. I asked the caretaker if he knew anything about it, and he had a lot of information ready for me. He told me that whenever a person died at the workhouse, they passed through the doors of the mortuary. They moved on up to the hilltop where they were laid to rest. The surrounding walls around the mortuary also tell their own story. During the peak of the famine, parts of the wall were knocked and huts were built to house the excess paupers. Evidence of this is still evident today, where the entrance to the huts have been filled with newer concrete. Overall, I feel I have covered a lot of the heritage associated with Kinsale Community Hospital, but a site like this that has so many buildings really is worth a visit. Who knows what you might find.